Yada Yahuah. Shabbat Shalom. Okay. Let me get prepared. Look, see that real quick. Okay. Shabbat Shalom. Today I want to deal with how do you fear Yahuah? How do you fear Yahuah? A lot of times when we speak on the fear of Yah, we have to really comprehend that there are a multitude of perspectives of what that means. I know personally when I came up as a youth, fearing was a trembling type of thing, a scary type thing. I had a major fear of going to hell or, this place of doom and torment. And I don't know, I guess my prior teachings or whatever what before realized I was an Israelite had me thinking certain ways, and I thought that was the right way. And it actually, was a good training wheel. Training wheels, we put on bike, it helps you to still go straight, but it's an aid. It gives you a false illusion of stability that I got this. But once you take them off, you shaky with your ride. The training wheels are not giving you a true ride. Makes you feel a little bit more confident in the ride, but it's not a real ride. Got to take those training wheels off and actually learn to stabilize yourself or be stable without them. Not going, I don't know. I've been beating up that my training wheels for so long. I'm not going to even mention it, but it's not necessary. People know what my training wheels were. And I don't know, much as I've criticized my training wheels, I have to be honest and say it's helpful. And I see how some people without those training wheels, it actually hinders them because they never had that fear. And so it's hard to get from fear to reverence. Because what we've been taught is fear. That's an English word, but the text is speaking on a Hebraic concept, and it's more so reverence than fear. But Abiyah, thank you for the Shabbat. Thank you for this opportunity to bring forth a word. Let edification come forth. Let the words of my mouth be things that I can glean from, but also others that hear. Let your word be magnified and let me diminish so that you may gain esteem on this Shabbat. All right. So let's get going. I'm gonna share my screen and get rolling. Share my screen. I know it takes me a second to move around, but you're there with me. All right. We're going over here to Mishle or Mishla or Mishliel, Proverbs 1, and what's called verse 7. It says, "The fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and discipline." Wisdom and discipline. So again, we reading this in English, so let's go to the English definition of fear. The English definition of fear says an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat. Another definition, a feeling of anxiety concerning the outcome of something or the safety and well-being of someone. Another definition, the likelihood of something unwelcome happening. It's not a calming or I don't know, it's not a welcoming feeling. But let's go over here. Proverbs 1:7 again. The fear of Yahuah is the beginning of knowledge, wisdom, and instruction. Fools have despised. As you notice, Hebrew runs from right to left. So my focus is here, fear. Right here it says Yarat, and the numbers here is 3374. Yarat, 3374. So I'm going to go look at 3374. And as we see, it says Yaira. Yaira. So obviously, same word, but it is the context of it. And so that's why it changed in its sound, but it's still the same word, 3374. And it says fear, reverence, awe. So it more so deals with reverence and awe. Awesome, fearing. This type of fear is how we supposed to fear our parents. You're not supposed to be, sitting up there, oh, scared, I'm scared, you know, but we're supposed to acknowledge that, okay, their capability is this, but they're choosing not to do that. Yah can destroy this earth at any given time, and that's something that we should acknowledge, but we shouldn't have the fear of it, knowing that he's able to, but in relationship, not sitting up worrying and trembling about that. The way I was taught fear, I was worrying and trembling about my disaster. And a lot of times that in itself had me focused on the disaster and not the love of the Most High, the love of my parents. I was always, in fear of my mom and my grandmother. That's who raised me. And so I probably didn't really reap the benefit of the relationship. And it does have an effect on where I am now because though I had a level of reverence, but it was mostly based on fear of what's going to happen. Didn't really get to enjoy the benefits of being a child of theirs because I was so scared. Oh, so scary. Let's look up the definition of reverence. Reverence says a deep respect for someone or something. A deep respect for someone or something. So let's go with that as our focus and not this hostility and scarcity and ooh, they're gonna do something to me, that threat. And let's read a couple of more verses. And I'm gonna cherry pick a little more verses. Deborah, Deuteronomy 10, and what's called verse 12, and it says, now, Israel, what is Yahuah your Elohim asking of you? But to fear, he ain't asking for him to be scared of him, to be trembling, to be worried. He wants reverence. Yahuah, your Elohim. When you reverence someone, it's easy to obey them. It should be. Because you want to honor them. You want to receive acceptance from them. So you fear Yahuah, your Elohim, to walk in all his ways and to love him. Obedience is the greatest aspect of loving Yah, because he chastens those he loves, he corrects them. And most people want, they don't want to acknowledge that chastening is an act of love because most of the chastening that we received in this life came with a threat or there was a danger or whatever. But yes, that is true that there is some danger and there is some threat to it. But if you know the one that loves you is not trying to destroy you completely, but trying to redirect you, your output and your thoughts towards it is a little bit different. This is something that we need to train our children so that they have a desire to love Yahuwah and not basically rebel, because they're like, oh, it's just torment. If I'm gonna enjoy my life now. If I got to go through torment, I'm like, I'm gonna do it at the end, And a lot of young folks, that's their mindset because they like all he offers is torment because we've misrepresented him and not given him his reverence. So again, and now Yisrael, what is your Yahuwah, your Elohim asking of you? But to reverence, to fear your Elohim, to walk in his ways, to love him, and to serve Yahuwah, your Elohim, with all your heart and with all your being. He is not asking us to be scared of him. He wants our obedience, but he also wants us to accept his ways and make them our ways. Let's keep going. Tehillim, Psalms 111, what's called verse 10, says, Resh, the fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of wisdom. When you reverence Yahuwah, he endows you with wisdom. When you reverence him, he knows that he can trust you with all his treasures of comprehension and understanding. Shin, all those doing them have a good understanding. Hmm. Tau, his praise is standing forever. Let me read it all together. Resh, the fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of wisdom. Shin, all those doing them have a good understanding. Tau, his praise is standing forever. I'm gonna move up just a little bit. Pay, he sent redemption to his people. Zadi, he has commanded his covenant forever. Kof, set apart and awesome is his name. Set apart and awesome is his name. That's a level of reverence. He's so great that he created all of this. So of course he can take it all away. But that is not what he desires. When we obey, he adds life. Life is only taken or was only taken in the beginning when there was disobedience. Let's keep going. Tehillim, Psalms 128. Favored are all who fear, who reverence Yahuwah, who walk in his ways. I'm gonna read the next verse just for my own benefit. You shall eat the labor of your hands, be favored, and let it be well with you. Yah wants well with us, not bad. Fear brings about worry and trembling. He wants us to reverence him so that it can be well with us. He does not wish torment on us. He does not wish to have to correct us or chasten us. If we obey and reverence him, it will be well with us. We keep going. Tehillim, Psalms 34, Yod. Fear Yahuwah, you his set apart ones. For there is no lack to them who fear him. Let's read it with the different comprehension, because of course we have been taught English, so we run straight to English, but we have to remember this is a Hebraic letter that's been translated. So we have to know what the writer meant. Yod, reverence Yahuah, you his set apart ones. For there is no lack to them who reverence him. We got to know what it's meaning. It's not wanting us to be in worry. We're not supposed to be in fret. We have to know how great he is. Yes, he is capable of doing all these things, but that is not his will to us. We have relationship with him. And if we're obeying him, all his riches, all his bounty, he wants to share with us, not dread and threat. That's what the English definition of fear comes with: worry and threat. Let's go back there again. An unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat. Again, an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous. Yah is is definitely he a creator, so he can destroy it all. But is he, if we are obedient, is he likely to cause pain or a threat to us? No. Let me keep going. All right. Koheleth, or Ecclesiastes 12. And what's verse 13? This is important. Let us hear the conclusion of the entire matter. So when we just heard fear and we read fear over and over, we're reading it in English, but we know by study that this is a Hebraic text. So we have to do more diligence than just stay with just fear and see that it's not just talking about the fear, the worry, the scare, the threat, that it's talking about reverence. So when you hear the conclusion of the entire matter, now you see that it's more depth to it than what the English has said. So let us hear the conclusion of the entire matter. Fear Elohim. So now we know it's reverence Elohim and guard his commands. For this applies to all mankind. All mankind. But all mankind does not have relationship with him. As a father, I want to teach my children to have relationship with him. The thing is that the way I was taught, fear was the natural human English definition of fear was the way I was taught. Them training wheels helped me stay straight for a while. Took them off and I got wobbly. But I knew the goal, and then I learned to reverence. So I don't walk around in fear and trembling, though it's wise to know that he's able to do all these things. My relationship is not based upon that. My base is based upon my reverence of him, and thus I want to obey. It is hard, though, nowadays with this generation of young folks. Very hard to get them to acknowledge reverence. If they don't see, I guess, the penalty or the punishment that can come with it, a lot of times they won't avoid certain things. They like, I'm gonna do what I want to do. This generation has a waywardness that's different than anything that I've ever seen. They're bold and they don't have much reverence for anyone. The things that we, as someone at my age, 54, when we were younger, we wouldn't do in front of adults. They do in front of adults like, I'm doing me. There's no fret, no problem, or no fear in them, to do that. Certain things, I'm like, my mom it's like my mom a whole foot shorter than I am. Physically, it's nothing my mom can do to me now, but I still have, a reverence towards her. It started off as fear. I hope she gonna kill me because she nearly killed me many times. I felt like, but now I don't really fear her, but I still have a reverence. There's certain stuff like I'm 54, so I know that some people are very touchy on the cussing. Sometimes I cuss, but I definitely try not to cuss in front of my mama. Not that I'm not grown, but that's still my mama. I ain't getting that comfortable. No, there's a reverence there. Not because I don't fear her pulling the belt out on me now, you know, but I don't even want that to happen. I ain't even trying to grab at no belt or whatever and stuff like that. I'm gonna move out. Oh, my apology, Mom. Yes, I had a fear at a time. I don't have that fear anymore, but I have a reverence. It built and got me to a state. Nowadays, young folks is ready to raise up on their parents with ease because they always are able to challenge. They don't have what cars have governors or whatever, something that stops them from going from the fastest speed or the most dangerous. They have nothing on them to slow them down. They go from 0 to 100 just with ease. If they feel disrespected, they coming back with it without any pause. No, that was no. We thought about it. We like, if I say something back, I'm finna get knocked out. Or I doubt seriously that my mom would do anything like that now. But I'm not even testing it. I don't. Why? And so parallel that to my relationship with Yah. I know he could take me out in my sleep and or even right now if he wanted to. I'm not fretting that because I'm trying to walk in obedience, not because I'm scared of him, but because I love him. I have a relationship. I reverence him. I know that he has my best interests at hand. Let me keep going. Let me keep going. I'm gonna get back to sharing my screen and going. Okay. I want to read some Genesis and go back to the beginning. And a lot of times it's acknowledged that the Bible is for us, but it wasn't wrote to us. It's for us though. And so sometimes we can see things at different times in life that we did not see. So let's read some of this Bereshit Genesis 2. It says, "Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their array." A lot of people try to say that there are two creations, but I'm like, if you just slow down and read, you'll see that this is talking about the same thing that went on in Genesis 1. And in the seventh day, Elohim completed his work which he had done, and he rested, on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And Elohim favored the seventh day and set it apart, because on it he rested from all his work which Elohim in creating had made. These are the births of the heavens and the earth when they were created in the day that Yahuah Elohim made earth and heavens. Now, no shrub of the field was yet on the earth. Okay, so remember, in the first creation situation in Genesis 1, you read all that, you see the trees and all that stuff was made before man. No shrub on the field yet on the earth. So he's going back because there's no shrub of field was yet on the earth. So this is before it was on the earth, and no plant of the field had yet sprung up. For Yahuwah Elohim had not sent rain on the earth, and there was no man, no man. So this is before man, before the day that he made man, and there was no man to till the ground. But a mist went up from the earth and watered the entire surface of the ground. And Yahuwah Elohim formed the man. So this is when he's creating the man out of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils breath of lives, and the man became a living being. And Yahuwah Elohim planted a garden in Eden to the east, and there he put the man whom he had formed. So this is after he created man. Man, the woman was inside of him still. And out of the ground, Yahuwah Elohim made every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. With the tree of life in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden. And from there it divided and became four heads. The name of the first is Pishon. It is the one surrounding the entire land of Havilah, where there is gold, and the gold of the land is good. Bethlehem is there, and the Shosham stone. And the name of the second river is Gihon. It is in the it is the one surrounding the entire land of Cush. Remember, Cush is Ethiopia. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel. It is the one which goes toward the east of Asher. Asher, I think that Asher is that Persia, but anyway. And the fourth river is the Euphrates. And Yahuwah Elohim took the man and put him in the garden of Eden to work it and to guard it. I'm gonna stop right here just for a second. He just dealing with this man. There's no fear at this moment at all. There's no fear as far as what the English is saying is fear. He just dealing with this man. So let's keep going. And Yahuwah Elohim commanded the man, saying, Eat of every tree of the garden. He's giving him commands. He's giving him directions. He's giving him Torah. Torah means instructions. That's what that means. He's giving him, he commanded the man. But do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for in the day that you eat of it, you shall certainly die. He didn't sit up there and say, I'm going to kill you. He just said, you surely die. There was a level of reverence that was gotten out of this. And yes, there could be some fear, but we don't clearly see fear aspect. We're just saying he gave him a direction, saying, hey, you should surely die. And Yahuwah Elohim said, It is not good for the man to be alone. I am going to make a helper for him as his counterpart. Dealing with this, the woman, the womb man. And from the ground, Yahuwah Elohim formed every beast of the field and every bird of the heavens and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called each living being, that was its name. So the man gave names to all livestock and to the birds of the heavens and to every beast of the field. But for the man there was not found a helper for him as his counterpart. So Yahuwah Elohim caused a deep sleep to fall on the man, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in its place. And the rib which Yahuwah Elohim had taken from the man, he made into a woman. So took her out of his womb, his ribs, and made a womb man or woman. And he brought her to the man. And the man said, This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. This one is called woman, because she was taken out of man. For this cause, a man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And they were both naked, and the man and his wife, they were not ashamed. Says nothing about him being in fear. Let's go over. Bereshit 3. And the Nahash was more crafty than all the lives of the field which Yahuah Elohim had made. And he said to the woman, is it true that Elohim has said, do not eat of every tree of the garden? He's challenging the Most High. Now, if they were in fears, if they were scared, I don't think they would even acknowledge this. These two humans or two people basically are fairly new. They like babies. They full grown, but they in size, but they babies. They don't know to have reverence or even fear. This Nahash, or we would call it serpent, came up to her. She wasn't scared of it. She ain't know nothing about fear, English fear. It approached her just calm and, it's supposed to be like a shiny serpent. Could have been one of the fallen. She wasn't scared. There was no fear on her. She let it just come up, talk to her. It was comfortable conversation. The man had given her direction from Yah not to eat, and she entertaining this conversation. Where is the fear at? And the woman said to the Nahash, we are to eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim has said, do not eat of it, nor touch it, lest you die. If she was with fear, if fear was on her, though she made this claim that she ain't supposed to touch it or eat it, do you think that some outside thing would be able to tempt her or even bring that to her if she had fear, like, "Oh, I'm gonna die"? If she's saying these words, but if she was in trembling, scared, come on. Most of us know how it was when we was like, man, if I do that, my mama gonna whoop my tail. And that threat alone was like, I ain't doing that. When you got true fear, nah, mm-mm. People can't even tempt you to do so. Man, come on, let's try this. Man, my daddy gonna beat the no. Where's the fear at? And the Nahash said to the woman, you shall certainly not die. For Elohim knows that in the day you eat of it, your eye shall be open. Come on now, when we have fear of our parents, there's a many things people offered us to offer to us, and we're like, no, no. Especially when we know what that whooping was like. They heard they was going. They don't even. I don't even think they had the concept of what dying was. They ain't never seen nothing die before. They didn't fear. They didn't have a reverence or a fear. That's my belief. Maybe I'm taking it upon myself, but I'm like, come on. And you shall be like Elohim, knowing good and evil. And the woman saw the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes, and the tree desirable to make one wise. And she took of its fruit and ate. And she also gave to her husband, and this is a part that most people ignore, with her, and he ate. So it sounds to me from reading this, the whole interaction was going on where the man was right there with her, and he ate. I'm like, come on. Let me just stop. Just kind of think on this. The man is in the garden, tending to the garden, tending to the animals, naming the animals, doing all this stuff, and he's seeing all of these animals having mates and him not having one. So now Yah gives him a mate. Remember, he spent all his time tending to the garden and these animals. So that's who his companions were. Now he got this woman, his companion. And I believe he was with her at every moment, not letting her go. No way. Like, his nose all open. Come on. I have had my nose wide open for a female. I know how that is. Where, you know, where I couldn't even, pay attention to what's going on. So I'm focused on that person. My nose had been wide open. I'm like, shoot, it was a period of time my nose was wide open for my wife when we was going. But anyway, you don't really focus on what's really important because this is the only thing important to me. Her, her. The Nahash talking to his woman, and he was with her. He could have easily said, "Shut up," because he had dominion over everything, not just the woman, but over all of the beasts and the animals, the creations. He had dominion over all that. He could have all of the other stuff to eat, as far as the vegetation, except for this. If he had fear, if there was fear, and that was the focal point, uh-uh. Oh no. Get that out your hand. Don't make the Most High come get us. They didn't know what dying was. You can't tell me they knew what it was. Because there was no fear. But y'all don't right, y'all is not trying to put he wants reverence. It ain't about fear. He don't want, I'm scared. I'm scared of you. You need to know who he is, and that will sometimes bring about, but that's not his goal to have us afraid of. He wants us to be welcome around him, to be comfortable around him, but comfortable not in doing us, but in doing him, obeying him. Our comfort should be in obeying him and his having his will being done and not our own. But most of us strive to have comfort in doing us. That's what a lot of this young generation, I'm gonna do with me. And it ain't really all they fought because you have to acknowledge who raised them kids. It's us. But let me keep going. Let me keep going. All right. Then the eyes of both of them were open and they knew that they were naked. They knew they were naked then. And they sewed fig leaves together and made loincloths for themselves. And they heard the voice of Elohim walking about in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves. Oh, now this is when fear, real fear. Oh, they were scared. Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Yahuah Elohim amongst the trees of the garden. They had never really dealt with no fear, but oh, they fearful now because we done messed up. Oh, we gonna die. Whatever that is, we gonna die. And Yahuwah Elohim called upon Adam and said to him, "Where are you?" And he said, "I heard your voice in the garden and was afraid." He dealing with all these animals, the biggest to the smallest. He ain't never dealt with being afraid. The Nahash right there, we ain't never dealt with being afraid. He done dealt with Yah. He's never been afraid. You never see that mentioned. But now I was afraid because I was naked. He always was naked. His nakedness is not what made him afraid. his disobedience and knowing that there's something coming from that disobedience. They wasn't afraid of dying when they tasted the fruit, but now that he's, oh, oh, I hear, and I was afraid. So I hid myself. And he said, who made you know that you were naked? You always been naked, but who made you aware of it? He could have just said, who made you afraid? Because they they were never afraid of Yah, but now they are. Have you eaten a tree which commanded you that you should not eat? And the man said, the woman who, I ain't even got to get into that narrative. I'm going to come up off of that. I'm going to come up off of that. You know, fear was not something that man was created with to start off with. Fear came about as a result of disobedience. So when it says fear being the beginning of wisdom, that fear did start them. They knew some things or whatever, but they were created perfect. There was no issue with them. So it was that type of fear was not necessary in man. It's reverence that has always been the requirement, not that type of fear. But a lot of times that is an assistant or assist or a training wheel that is necessary to help people to stay straight when they ride and when they're going on a path. But you got to take them training wheels off. Some people, though, never have had training wheels, and so they've never went straight. And so I'm like, I used to have a problem with the training wheels, when I came to the awakening, but now I see that sometimes it may be a necessary tool so we can comprehend some stuff. I wish that we could train up without that tool, but give them another tool that helps them stabilize. I hated seeing one time that I was going, you know, I was talking to my daughter, my youngest daughter, and she was just running and scared from. She was terrified of me. I'm 6'4". I'm big. She was just a little baby girl. She was just terrified. And I'm like, man, it just, it didn't feel well in my heart that she was that scared. She was terrified because I was correcting her with words and she just, felt so threatened by me. And I'm like, in that, I probably did a disservice towards her because I'm trying not to be threatening towards, but they need to have a level of fear as a training wheel sometimes, or that's how I'm taught or I've been taught. But I want to teach reverence and not that fear. And it's like it's hard to balance that because I see so much of this generation now, they don't have that fear. They engage even the police or whatever. Like, I ain't until something happens. Now but they only shift when the consequence comes. They don't shift prior out of reverence. They know that the authority is there, but only time they want to shift is when a consequence comes. That's not really knowing Yah. Knowing the fear of Yah is 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 reverence based, but you got to know who He is. You got to know He created all this. He could destroy all this, but not move in fear because of those things. Let me finish this out with a verse. Let me go. Yohanan, Aleph, 1 John 4. There's no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear holds punishment, and he who fears has not been made perfect in love. We love him because he first loved us. If someone says, I love Elohim and hates his brother, he is a liar. For the one not loving his brother whom he has seen, how is he able to love Elohim he has not seen? And we have this command from him, that the one loving Elohim should love his brother too. All righty. Perfect love casts out fear or that threat. Reverence is a different thing than fear, but sometimes fear can be used as a tool. I myself would love to build relationships that were based on reverence alone, but a lot of people don't reverence things that they don't fear. They don't give it the proper respect. We have been taught, and I kind of agree with that, people take kindness for weakness. A lot of my kindness or whatever, people, treat it as weakness. And then a lot of times when they see this 6 foot frame and hostility and stuff like that, then they want to rethink that. But I'm like, I don't like being a mean person or whatever, or even viewed as that. At my job, some of the students be playing around and say, "Oh, you're so scary," and it don't feel good at all. I do like that, they will obey what I'm saying, but I don't want them to be scared of me. I don't want that to be the basis of why they do what I'm asking them to do. I'm not a threat. I'm not trying to be a threat. Yah is not trying to be a threat to us. Though he is possible of removing us completely, he wants us to obey. Obedience is greater than sacrifice. Obedience is greater than fear. Reverence brings forth true obedience. When you know how great someone is, what they can do, but you do what's necessary to appease them, not because of what they can do, but because you just love them. Abiyah, I thank you for this Shabbat. I thank you this opportunity was given to me to speak. May some edification have occurred. I have cherry picked a few verses here and there, but hopefully I have not distorted or tore down what you have built up. May some have gained today, and that the fear that they may have had in the past turn to reverence, and that they acknowledge you in all their ways and dealings. Yada Yahuah, Shabbat Shalom, Shanquil Yah, One Vision Ministry, Shanquilla Carter. Shalom, Shabbat Shalom.